All right, so while this entire regime is out here insulting everyone's collective intelligence, and the FBI run by Trash Patel thinks that obviously we're all fucking children and this is like some comic superhero story, can we just go over some actual like real life shit, some facts that because the further away you get from this, the more strange shit that comes to the surface. All right, so here are just a few things I'm adding to the collective analysis and investigation that every single person is doing, just trying to understand, like, and again, I'll lead with this, okay? I did not like Charlie, all right? I was not a fan, could not stand anything this man said, but what happened to him was fucked up, and what's even more fucked up is that the government is absolutely and clearly lying about it. All right, so this was a big event. There were like 3,000 people there. I'm sure you guys have been to events before. When you have that many people at an event, you almost always have emergency personnel, like a medic or somebody standing by, because things could happen. People faint, people get sick, whatever. So you're telling me that an event that's outside, that has no security checkpoints, okay, they didn't have anybody like looking through bags, you don't have any emergency personnel on site. So that's point number one that I'm like, what? That didn't make, it wouldn't have made any difference, because the way that he was shot, it clearly hit his carotid, and it would have been lights out very quickly, probably before they even put him in the car. So it's not like it would have mattered, but it's a strange point. I wanted to mention it. So then you have that fact that right after the shooting, somebody from TPUSA goes up and takes the camera from behind Charlie. And he said, apparently he said on social media that like he didn't want anybody messing with it, and he's turned it over to the FBI. I don't know about y'all though. Like, I think most people would know that, like, hey, you don't get involved in an active crime scene. Add to that one of the very first men who was, he's like a young boy, but whatever, he was in a red shirt and a 47 hat. They were interviewing him, asking him what happened, and as he was telling, like, this is what I saw, a whole bunch of men in red TPUSA shirts came up and shut that conversation down, like physically interjected themselves so that interview was over. Okay, so that's weird. Add to that the crime scene wasn't really taped off for like almost an hour, is what it looks like from everything I can see. So that's strange. And then because there's so much speculation, I'm going to circle back to that at the end of this video about whether what we saw here was the entrance or exit wound. And as someone who's been shot, I have my own opinions about that, again, which I'll circle back to. But for my measure, this looks like an exit wound, okay? And I'll come back to why towards the end of the video. But let's just assume that one of two theories is true, right? If this is an exit wound, right? If it comes in back here and it exits here, which seems the most likely outcome here, then the bullet would have been right in the grass in front of Charlie, okay? Or it would have hit someone. We know it didn't hit someone, so it would have been in the grass. 5 days after this happened, they're out there with construction equipment, ripping up the pavers, grass, and sod. Now, I know they're saying that they're building some kind of a memorial, and I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, at crime scenes, there's too much blood, concrete is porous, sometimes you can't wipe it all off, and you have to just rip the concrete out. I'll admit that for the concrete part, but for the grass part, I don't know. Especially if that's where potentially, if this is an exit wound, that's where the bullet would be, somewhere in that grass. So, just a detail. Add to that there were thousands of people at this event, most of whom had their phones out recording. Where's all this footage? Where is all this footage? I have seen a few videos from a couple different vantage points, but guys, there were thousands of people there. Where is the footage? All right, and then the weapon that they're saying Tyler Robinson used, which was a Mauser 98, okay? But everybody's referring to it as a 30-06, okay? And they're saying that there were, right, so this kind of a weapon it's like a bolt action rifle, right? So after he fired, the casing would stay in the gun, right? You'd have to manually eject it, okay, to chamber another round. So you've got the casing in the gun, and then you've got 3 in the magazine, all right? And those are the casings that they're referencing that they saw that were engraved. Okay, so supposedly when they found it, they have the 4 casings, right? 1 that's been spent, which is in the gun, and then 3 in the magazine. All right, but they said that they found the weapon completely assembled, wrapped in a towel. But then when he's talking to his supposed roommate, he says he's worried about prints. But you had a towel. Why wouldn't you wipe the weapon down? That doesn't make sense. Maybe you were in a rush, but not a rush like you wouldn't wipe the weapon down. And why is that important? Because the rifle that they recovered, so this Mauser Model 98, which is a German weapon, right? Which would mean that it wouldn't have any serial numbers on it because it would have been manufactured before JFK's assassination, which is when the 1968 sort of gun laws came into place, that they wanted serial numbers on every weapon. So without that serial, they would have had no way to tie it to anybody because it wouldn't have had a serial number on it at all. All right, now very briefly on to the entry-exit wound. All right, so from my measure, what I saw was I saw someone responding with a not like this, but like kind of going back and then coming off this way. Now, I don't know, from my measure, if you're hit with the 30-06, even from 400 yards away, or feet away, excuse me, there's going to be a more violent reaction. It's probably going to be a more explosive impact, right? And exit wound, if that's what happened, all right? So his reaction didn't seem right to me, and then he went like he had that sort of decoy posturing like that, which obviously says spinal cord type of injury. So to me, now, I've been shot. I can barely, even now, see where it went in, even at the time. I knew that I had been shot, but I couldn't even see where the wound was because the entry wound was it's so tiny, right? So I have problems with that. I know that you can have situations depending on the type of round where, if you have a, whatever it's called, like soft tip round, it can sort of expand more on impact and that can cause like tissue tearing and that's possible. And if you have like a full metal jacket, then that's not what's going to happen. It's going to go in and it's going to be a teeny tiny little, wound on entry and then much bigger on the back end. But here's my real problem with it. In either of those circumstances, he's a man of steel. Guys, look, when I hear that kind of stuff, I think, okay, this is how we ended up with some of these very exaggerated stories in the Bible, all right? Because, look, whatever you thought of Charlie Kirk, that's your business. But come on. It's not even like a thick bone. These are tiny little bones in your neck that, move a lot so you can move your head around. And there's lots of gaps between them because you got your vertebrae. It's just, come on. Guys, like, we're not 5 years old. The government actually thinks that we are that fucking stupid. All right, and then let's move on to Tyler Robinson. What's happened since he's been in custody, okay? So as soon as he goes into custody, so apparently he was like, popping off at the mouth, texting his roommate / lover, all the specific details of everything that happened, and then he confessed it to his dad, and then he agreed to be taken into custody. But then as soon as he was taken into custody, he's been lock-lipped and lawyered up ever since. Okay, so he's in Utah. They're pursuing the death penalty, all right? So I can tell you right now what's happening. Like all this stuff that's coming out that the feds are saying, oh, these are the text messages, these are the Discord messages, blah, 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 blah. Here's what's happening. In the public eye, we're only seeing what they say, right? But behind closed doors, they're in pretrial discovery, right? So they're looking like they're trying. So this is Tyler Robinson's side, his lawyers, the defense. They're trying to assess how strong is the state's evidence, okay, against him, because he hasn't confessed since he's been in custody. Now, if you knew, like if you were Tyler Robinson or his counsel and you knew that the state had an airtight case against you and they were going for the death penalty, my guy, you would take a plea deal. You would, because you would want to stay, right? I don't know how they do their executions out there in Utah, but if it's a table, you would want to stay off the table, okay? But if you're Tyler Robinson and let's just say that maybe you're not the person that did this and they're trying to force evidence into the public and say, oh, we have him, it's airtight, whatever. But behind closed doors, his defense team is vetting this evidence and there are issues with, like, let's say chain of custody or whatever. The forensic evaluation is going to take a little bit longer, guys. It's only been a few days. I don't know. For me, the fact that there hasn't been a plea deal, I know this would be fast, but I don't know. I'm feeling like the state might not have as airtight of a case as we're being led to believe that they do, because otherwise, yeah, you would take a plea deal. You just would. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. I'm just thinking out loud because this situation's wild.